Thanks again for joining us for today's webcast, Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Pam Misialek, Senior Product Marketing Manager. Pam, you now have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Sydney, and welcome, everybody, to Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013 Feature Functionality Webcast. So today we're going to kind of talk about some of the business drivers, some of the things that we looked at when we did research around the release that kind of added to what we added into the release, and then we'll kind of go from there and we'll break it down into more and more deeper things of feature and functionality that is in Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013. That's going to be coming out here in December, and very, very soon it'll be coming. So let's go ahead and get started because I have a lot of content for you. We have a lot of features we're going to talk about in this next hour. And so we'll get started right away. Keep in mind you can print this to PDF. So we're going to go through some of these features fairly quickly. So if you want reference material, you can print to PDF, and then you'll be able to get those things after the webcast. So first, let's talk about some of today's challenges. So what we've seen that made up the Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013 release was really around some of these drivers. You know, people are using virtualization more often. They have remote workers on a very common basis where in the past that wasn't as predominant. The IT budgets have been dropping, and they're being spent in different ways, and people are really just working differently. So let's take a look at some of the things that made up Dynamics GP 2013 around this. So let's first talk about the economy a little bit, because I think it'll give you some context of why we added some of the functionality we did, because there's really some reasoning behind it. So let's start with the economy. So back in 2009, the world changed. We had the economic downturn, businesses changed, people changed, and they changed in a very long-term way. And so what we've seen around this economy is that, IT budgets have dropped. People are not investing into IT projects as often, and if they do, they're looking at more of a ROI. They're really looking at, for every dollar I spend on IT, what am I going to get back for the business? So it's really changed how people, view software and how they implement it and how they use it. Historically, about every 7 years, a typical business would look for a new ERP system. They'd look for a new accounting system about every 7 years. After 2009, we've seen that shift where now it's about every 12 years. And really what it's spurred from is going, I'd rather, instead of rip and replace my entire ERP, I want to make a specific function better. I want to take a specific thing and make that either whether it's a function or a process and make that thing better. I want better budgeting. I want better reporting. I want better supply chain management, or I want to track my inventory better. And so what you'll see in Dynamics GP 2013 is we've added functionality around that. So rather than adding big, huge modules, we're adding functionality that will give you greater ROI in a very small bucket of time rather than having to do really, really large IT projects. The other thing that the economy spurred was what we have on the slide here is geopolitics. But really what that means is businesses are looking at different business opportunities, whether it's expanding into different geographies or expanding into different markets within the geography they're in, but they're looking at the world is flatter, or what opportunities can I take advantage of, where before that risk usually outweighed, where now people are looking at, I need to have a solvent business. If a downturn happens again, I need to make sure that I'm set up to succeed in that type of market, knowing that we've had that in the past. So people is the next thing, and with people, it's a very interesting thing. It's a very big focus in GP 2013. And the reason why we found is the reason why businesses are successful is because their people are happy. And so we've added a lot of functionality that's centered around people. And it's people, the person that's inside of GP every single day. How do we make their life easier? How do we make it simpler for them to use the product? And not just accounting, but really taking all the things that that person does in a day and make it easier or better or faster for them to do their job. Because if they're happier, then the business is going to thrive. So we added a lot of functionality around people just because change is constant. So there's always change in the business. There's always going to be things that you need to do. And if your people have that mindset that they're able to work the way that they want to work, and you are able to give them that tools, it's going to really help, drive your business success. And then the last area is around technology and cloud. So if you look at a magazine, you go through an airport, wherever you go, you're always hearing cloud and messaging around, technology. And really what we did with GP 2013 is said, well, technology is great, the cloud is important, but what kind of functionality is going to give businesses that return on their investment? It's cloud for getting business value rather than, going to the things of going to into the cloud. So next, let's go down a level deeper and talk a little bit more about some of the other drivers that we've had around GP 2013. And so what we've seen is it's really about a business solution from Microsoft. So it's really more than just accounting. So what we found when we did research with our existing customer base is you wanted more. You wanted more than just debits and credits. You wanted really a solution that you can run your entire business end to end and be able to get more out of it and really get more value out of your existing investment. And that's what we did with Dynamics GP 2013 is try to add a functionality that would help you more than just doing your day-to-day accounting work, but really give you a solution that can help run your business and drive your business in a very meaningful way. And we've done it in a couple different areas. So one we've already talked about, which is workloads. I need a better payroll process, or I need a better benefits enrollment process. I want better budgeting. You're taking some of those very small, finite processes and trying to make those and improve those and make those better. So we call those kind of workloads or suites rather than, rip and replace. It's really more about taking those few things and, giving you that huge ROI that can be very impactful for your business without a huge IT investment. We've also spent a lot of time on proactive applications. And so what we found, we do research at Microsoft, we do research all the time. For ERP, whenever we do research, there's always one thing that is the number one thing most asked for by customers. So our people that are using Dynamics GP every day, the number one thing that they always ask for is better reporting. And I've been on this team for many, many years, and every single time we do this research, it's always the number one thing. And so with Dynamics GP version 10, we added SQL reporting services reports. We added Excel reports. With GP 2010, we added more of those types of reports to give you more options in a base that you could get better reporting. Well, we did the research again, and we're still getting asked for better reporting. And so what we found is it's really not better reporting. It's more about being able to answer questions in your business, being able to answer proactive questions in your business, like, do I have enough liquid cash that I'm going to be able to pay my people 6 months from now based on, my projected sales, my projected costs? Am I going to have enough cash in the bank to pay my people? Am I selling my items at the right price? Am I selling my services at the right price? Is there a way I could do it in a different way that would go down to my bottom line and make my business more successful? So there's questions like that they want answers to, and they want reporting that will give them some of those answers. And that's one of the areas that we focused on with Dynamics GP 2013 is really being able to do that. Because when they get that reporting and that information to be able to answer some of those questions, it's a huge value to the organization. So the other thing that we did is, now that we've increased some of your processes, we've given you the ability to have, proactive type applications. The next part is really connecting all the people together. So I want you to think about in your organization, I'm sure there's that one person, it might be even you, that's kind of the go-to person. They're inside of GP every day. They're the power user. The CEO or the executives go to that person, the sales team, the operations people, everybody in the organization kind of goes to that one person to get information out to them because they're not a Dynamics GP user. So that one person is kind of that go-to person. And so what the theory is if you could take that person that knows the business really well, they know Dynamics GP, they know how to get reporting, and you can actually give them the ability to help drive the business rather than spending half of their day creating reports and answering questions for other people, it'll give you an immediate value to your business. And so we've added functionality that gives that where instead of the owner having to go to the power user or the go-to person, and they can just get it on their own and get it themselves, it's going to give a huge value immediately to the business. And that's another thing that we've added in Dynamics GP. So an example around this is in this screen shot, you can see it's a highway in Denver, and they had a sign that said winter driving conditions ahead. So you know the roads are going to be bad, which is pretty obvious by the picture. What they did in Denver is they took this a step further, and this is what we're doing with Dynamics GP 2013 as well, is taking it a step further. Because I don't want to know that there's winter driving conditions ahead. I want to know how long is it going to take to me from the point I'm at to get to where I'm going, because there are winter driving conditions. Is it going to take me 2 hours, or will it take me 8 hours? And so that's kind of what we've done, where they did that in Denver now, where it gives them an estimated time to get from Denver out into the mountains. And so that's what we're doing with Dynamics GP, is adding more of those types of things that gives you that proactive look in a way that's meaningful, that makes a lot of sense for the organization. So let me show you an example. Okay, so again, to be able to view this, you can click F5 and it'll go to full screen. So what this is a navigation list inside of Dynamics GP. So a GP user can get to this. There's charts and graphs on the left that you're able just to view information. You can click on the different ones, and it gives you that ability to be able to view that information about, in this case, items and sales trends. Well, what gives you more value about this is because year-over-year sales is great, or monthly sales are great statistics, and can give you value. But really, being able to view information in the context of what you're looking for will take it to that next level. So by this way, here I'm clicking one item. I could click several of them. But in this case, I could click one item. I could also do a filter as well. So if I wanted to look at certain items that have a certain quantity available, over a certain threshold, then I could view those as well. But when I mark them, what gives me the most value on it is I'm able to refresh these reports, and they're refreshed in the context of the information that I selected. So it kind of gives you that business intelligence in the context of what you would want to look for. So there's lots of examples of how this could work. But in this example, it's an item. We could sort the information based on a certain quantity or a certain site or a certain bin. So you can say, is my warehouse organized in the best way? If I organized it better, would my people be happier, or would I be able to have, less people focused on, my shipping process would be an example. So you could look at this, look at the different items or different areas of your warehouse, and be able to just see, do my sales trends match where I'm putting the items at? Things like that. That'll give you just more context in the data that you're looking for. Okay, so the other thing we've added here is, you'll notice in this report, we have the chart, and you can just look at the locations and the quantities, but we've added these on the side. And the reason why is so now you get some information, that's great, but really what you want is to be able to do actions from it. Depending on what your role is. So it may be that you want to, share this with someone else. You may want to copy and put it into an email or put it into a PowerPoint presentation so you can show it to other people. You may want to do an instant message chat with someone and say, hey, are you seeing the same trend I am? Look at this. You can collaborate around that. And so that's what we've done, is added the ability to be able to edit, be able to view, be able to share this information with other people, kind of back to that working in a different way. And so what's nice about these is these are SQL reporting services reports. So if you have SQL reporting services, it comes with a SQL, you can deploy that. Any information that you have in a SQL database, you can create a report on. So you can get Dynamics GP information, but you could also get information from any of your other systems that you have, or legacy systems that you use that have a SQL database. You're able to mash that together, and they can view it with inside of Dynamics GP. So it gives you that huge value to be able to kind of get that aggregated view, include CRM information or other sales type information that you have in different locations, as long as it's in a SQL database. Okay, so next we're gonna continue. So that was kind of just a look in some of the proactive connected applications that you're able to get. So next, let's talk about some of the things that we've done around kind of this business solution for Microsoft. And keep in mind, this is something where not everybody is going to use this, but it is something where it's giving you the power of being able to choose. And so what we found is most customers, you'd like to have your accounting data in-house. You want to keep control of it. You know, it's extremely important data. You want it in-house. But you may not be able to or want to upgrade to the latest version of Office. Or maybe you want to use CRM, but you don't necessarily need that deployed in-house. And when we think about this business solution from Microsoft, it's really that ability to have that choice. You know, maybe you don't have the infrastructure to be able to implement like Microsoft CRM. You know, maybe you're not able to do that. Well, you could use the online version of it, but still keep your, accounting and your GP data on your premises and where you can keep control. Similar thing with Office 365. If you want some of your power users to use some of the new things that are coming in Excel 2013, which give a huge business value, especially for that power user, you could put them on Office 365 and you pay per month. And they're always going to have the latest and greatest version, of Office. So there's some things like that you can use that gives you that ability to be able to say yes. So what we found is because after 2009 and the economy downturn, once it came back up, people said, that would be great. I would love to be able to do CRM and do this and do that. But, really, what is my cost-benefit structure? When am I going to actually make more money by whatever technology I implemented? And so a lot of those IT budgets have tightened. And so this just gives you the option to be able to pay as you go, kind of, and mix and match, where you can have some users use Office. Another example around this is SharePoint. Dynamics GP has integrations with SharePoint. We have a lot of tools and things that you can add into SharePoint that would integrate into GP. But a lot of people don't have the infrastructure and the IT knowledge to be able to maintain and implement, SharePoint deployments. So another option would be is to use Office 365, and the people that would want to collaborate, you could put out your SQL reporting services reports, you can put out your Excel reports and share them out there, rather than have them in-house where people can get to them from virtually anywhere. So those are some of the things that we're adding now. So it gives you that power of choice when you're ready to make some type of change. Then you can look at what are the different options and what's the best thing for my business. So you don't have to say no. The other area that we're focusing on is the device area. So what we found is back to people. We focused a lot of our time on people because when your people are happy, your business thrives. And people in the workforce today, they want to be able to use their own personal devices. They want to be able to use, their phone and be able to connect to their email or be able to access information, from a personal device. They want to be able to access, Dynamics GP from home and from, wherever they're at. If they're, traveling, they want to get access to things in a different way than they've had before. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at an example of what that means. So one of the things that we've added with Dynamics GP 2013 is a new web client. And so you launch Dynamics GP through the Internet, through Internet Explorer. So you launch Internet Explorer, you go out to a trusted site, and then you're able to access it, basically from any Internet Explorer session. So you can access it from a coffee shop, from home, from the office. So that's the next thing I'm going to show you, but it was a big part of this release, and mainly because it gives you that power of being able to choose and being able to give your people that flexibility in the workplace where, let's say they have to leave for some type of personal commitment. They're able to leave, go do that, go home, finish out their day from home, with being able to get access to Dynamics GP. So it's a huge value. It's going to make your people much more productive. So in Dynamics GP, the web client is a really, really huge thing. I'm going to show it to you next. But I also wanted to comment that we have a lot of other functionality as well. So we have over 150 features in the release. A lot of them are focused on you. They're focused on the things that our existing customer base have been asking for. And so when you look at the release, when I've done similar presentations to others, a lot of them said, for this one feature, it's worth for our company to do the upgrade. It's worth for the cost of upgrade to get this one thing. So there's a lot of things in there that they may be small, but to the person that's using it, GP every day, they're huge. And so they're going to look at it and they're going to clap and cheer and be like, yes, this finally, thank you very much. So that all became because of you guys. So it is a very, very powerful release when we look at it overall. So let's take a look at the web client. Okay, so you'll notice here, it's just the website that we're going to. What I did is I just secured a couple servers on a rack. from a hosting server provider, so they're not even a Dynamics GP provider. They're just hosting the server, and then we install the web client out there. So you'll notice that the look and feel is very similar to the desktop client that you have today, but it's just accessed through the web. So the first thing I wanted to point out, which is a new feature in Dynamics GP 2013. So if you had graphs and charts on your homepage before and you turned them off, you want to take a relook at these once you get to 2013, because we've redone these charts and graphs so they're faster. You have the choice of when you want to have them refreshed, so they don't refresh every time you go to the homepage, and that was the main reason why people wouldn't use them, because it just took too long to open. So we've added these new, they are SQL reporting services reports. They're the same reports that I showed you with the business analyzer that was inside of GP when we looked at the list page previously. They're the same types of reports. You're just able to access them from this homepage instead. And here you're able to view them, you're able to edit the report, you can get more information about the report, find out which company or if it's a multi-company report. We've also added some navigation ability to be able to view things in a different way and be able to kind of drag and drop and move things based off how people wanted to work. And what we have found, especially for casual users who don't know Dynamics GP very well, this was something that was greatly asked for, so they can have their quick links for the few windows that they want to be able to view. They'll have it right here on their homepage, so they don't have to learn any of the navigation on the left. So I clicked on financials. So this is the other area on the homepage. We're able to, maximize, minimize. We're able to move things around and so forth. So it's similar to what we had before. It just gives you more flexibility, being able to view it in a different way. So hopefully to reduce the number of clicks that it takes for them to work on a transaction. The other thing we added was this customize this page. And so what that allows you to do, especially for more casual users, you don't want, let's say the owner or executive type person, you probably don't want them to run a reconcile or do any utilities or really do any routines or anything like that, but you want them to be able to probably view information and get to inquiry windows. So in here, you can customize the page for them and take out all the places that you don't want them to go. So it just streamlines their experience, and it makes it a lot easier for them to use the product. So another thing that we've introduced is the concept of a limited user. And a limited user is going to actually have a Dynamics GP login, so that you can have someone logged in as a limited user. Pricing-wise, there's a separate price point for it, so it's not a full user. And so this will be new in Dynamics GP 2013. And what is powerful about it is this limited user is basically a read-only user. They can go to inquiry and they can go to reports. So they're able to view this information. They can go to smart lists. They can view smart list information. They can view the navigation lists I showed earlier, and then they can get to reports and inquiry. So it's kind of back to that, taking that power user that spends half their time creating reports and answering questions for other people, giving them the access that to have other people be able to view this information on their own without giving them full rights to Dynamics GP. So it's kind of that where they'd be able to, like in this case, I went to the financials inquiry. They can view information, they can do inquiry, but they're not able to access the other pieces. So it's just really inquiry and reports, and then smart lists as well. And so they're able to access that information in a different way that'll just give you more value and be able to give users that ability to answer their own questions. Okay. So next, let's move on, and we're going to talk through some more of the features in Microsoft Dynamics GP and kind of get into the details of what's into the release. Okay, so there was a few questions in the question manager, so I'll probably answer just a few of them. So one question was about customizations and how they'll work with the web client. So great question. The way the web client works is it is using the Dexterity application. So the Dexterity, it's basically running Dexterity in a runtime environment out on the web server. So they'll launch a version of GP out on the web server and it'll run there. And then what we do is we're using the exact same Dexterity code. So when you click Save or you click Post, the exact same code that's running, and then it just renders it in a Silverlight form. So any Internet Explorer, Internet app that is Silverlight compatible, the web client will work on it. So any Dexterity customization will automatically move over. We tested several third parties. Really the only edits that they'll need to make are more cosmetic. It might cut off a field here and there, and they may have to do some changes in Dexterity to do that. The other two areas that are very common in development platforms are .NET and VBA, or like modifier with VBA. So with modifier with VBA, the modified forms will come across to the web client without a problem. The VB code will not. So that is an area that will not move to the web client. It still will work on the desktop client the way it does today, but Silverlight doesn't understand what VB is. And so there's no correlation between the two. So it'll still run the modifier report or modifier form. It just will not, the VBA code will not fire and will not run. So that would be an area that will not work with the web client. .NET applications are outside of the desktop client predominantly anyway. And so you can move that to the cloud and use eConnect or web services to integrate it into the web client, because it's really just a Dexterity application that's running in a runtime environment on the server. Next, Business Analyzer. Is Business Analyzer included in base products for the GP 2013 license, or how is it licensed? So Business Analyzer is no charge. There's no charge for that application. It's included with Dynamics GP. So the users, of course, if you access the first way, you're inside of GP, so of course you'd be a full user. We do have an app that sits outside of GP for Business Analyzer, and that will not require a user license with Dynamics GP 2013. So there's no charge for people who are outside of GP to be able to access that information. If they're in as a limited user, then of course they could access that as well, and then they would just have the limited user cost. The next question was, does it count towards your total users? We actually track limited and full users separately. So when you buy GP or when you get to 2013, you can have, let's say, 10 full users and 5 limited users. So when you log into GP, you're going to have 2 counters now. It's going to tell you how many concurrently are in for limited, how many concurrently are in for full, and it'll track those separately. And it's controlled by the role-based security. Is IE9 required? No, it is not. So really it's just anything that's Silverlight compatible. So does the limited user have access to vendors, so you could see like the tax ID, social security number? So it gets access to the vendor inquiry window. So whatever's on the inquiry window for the vendor, they would be able to access. So it does have that type of information on it for the vendor. So you could modify that and just take that information off, or if they're getting access to like a smart list, they would be able to mark that in there, so you could create predefined smart lists to be able to do that. Do macros still work? Yes, macros will still work with the web client as well. Another question around project timesheet entry and Business Portal. Business Portal is remaining intact. There's no functionality increases or decreases. It will still remain. It will work the same way that it's worked before, so that it just doesn't tie in like with the web client. So the web client is a separate app that would be running. Would an inquiry be a limited user? Yes. So the limited user has access to all inquiry windows, and then by role you can use role-based security to reduce or change the inquiry windows you specifically want them to get access to. And there's predefined setups in security that you're able to pick: a limited user for sales, a limited user for financials, and then you're also able to take those and break those up in even more detail if you wanted to. Can you export trial balance and account transactions directly to Excel? Yes, you can. There's a couple easy ways to do it. You can use Smart Lists. You can create a Smart List and export that to Excel, or you can use Excel Report Builder, and then you can actually link all your tables together, decide exactly what type of information you want in the Excel report, and then you're able to move that there. There was a question on licensing. So for existing customers, if you're current on your maintenance plan, you can ask to get GP 2013. Once you ask, you're moved to a new perpetual pricing model. There is no charge to move, and you get kind of like for like, as long as you're an existing customer prior to October 1st. So the customizes page, does that replace GP security? It does not. It is both in the desktop and in the web client. It just takes those pieces away, so it streamlines their experience. But they still would have access, so they could customize the page and add them back, and they'd be able to access whatever they have access to. But it just gives you that additional functionality to be able to take those off if you need to. There was a question about the limited user and if there's any write access. There is limited write, and there's only writing around project timesheets is the only thing you'll be able to do write-wise. The rest is read-only. Okay, another question was around how can a non-GP user see inquiry-like searches data instead of being a GP user. So if you choose not to have a limited user, then you can access Excel reports that are refreshable. You can access SQL reporting services reports outside of Dynamics GP, and we have a business analyzer application that sits outside. That's an app that runs that they're able to access that information. So it would just be the way you deploy it. So you have to deploy it, and they need to know where to navigate to go get to the Excel reports or get to the SQL reporting services reports, and then you'd have to lock that down from a security perspective. And so that's why some people would use the limited user, because then they'll be able to access it directly, without having that extra layer. Okay, so let's move on, and then we'll take another break and go through some more questions. So next, GP Next, we'll just talk quickly about what's going to happen from here, from this point on. So in December, GP 2013 will launch. We are going to stick to about a 3-year product major release cycle. So it'll probably be about 3 years from now is when the next, GP Next, GP 14 will release. We'll also have kind of a mid-release, probably 18 months after this, and kind of the same pattern that we've had before. There's other products or other ERP products in the industry that are moving to more of a rapid release cycle. And with GP, we've chosen not to do that because most of our customers have said 3 years is plenty. 3 years is almost fast for me to be able to continue to upgrade. And so that's kind of our roadmap that we're going to continue along with that aligned. The web client. So when we release in December, the web client will not have everything in Dynamics GP, but what's nice about it is you can run in mixed mode. So some people can run the desktop client and other people can run the web client. So when we do phase 1 in December, it'll have financials and distribution. So in that case, for example, let's say you're using HR and payroll, what that would mean to you is you could deploy the web client, use financials and distribution, but the payroll clerks or the people running payroll would have to have the desktop client in order to access that functionality. These release cycles will be between 3 and 6 months a piece, so will not fall under the standard 3-year major life cycle that we talked about. So these will be faster. Think of them more kind of like service packs. With the web client, you kind of add a service pack to the web client, and then payroll will appear, and throughout. But that's our phases that we're planning for the web client. Management Reporter. So this is really, really important because FRX will not work with Dynamics GP 2013. So FRX will no longer work with GP 2013, so you will need to move to Management Reporter. You can run Management Reporter in dual mode with FRX before you upgrade, so you're able to kind of do that, but it's something that you'll want to put into your planning process because it will not work. Management Reporter is in a rapid cycle. They release functionality very, very quickly. The RU3 actually released a couple weeks ago, so they're continually adding functionality and functionality and functionality. So if you looked at it a couple of years ago and it was missing functionality that you needed so you couldn't move, take a look at it again, because we've added a ton of functionality, and it's pretty close to having parity with FRX. For those of you who are new to Management Reporter or haven't heard about it, we do have online, there are webcasts about the differences, like just functionality differences, the migration process, because it converts your rows and columns and trees, and so it gives you all of that information. So there's a 3-part series that is very, very good that kind of just gives you, if you know FRX really well, here's the differences, here's a second part that's is how to migrate, and then a third part of how do you create like a new report from scratch. So those are some of the things that you can get online in webcasts that are already pre-recorded, but it's something you'll want to put into your plans. Okay, so I did want to, next we're going to talk about some of the features, functionality, some what I like to call meat and potatoes. We'll kind of get into some of the meat of the release. I did want to point out to everybody the feature of the day. So if you haven't seen the feature of the day, I'm going to go out and show you right now. So what I've been doing is we have a blog posting that we do, and in this blog posting we have features of the day. So every day we have a new feature out. We'll highlight it. It'll talk about what's cool about it. Why would you care about the feature? What does it look like? It has some screenshots. Just gives you kind of an overview of what that's been doing. So I've been doing features of the day now for several months, so there's a ton of information out there. So that would be the first source I would go to if you wanted to learn about a specific thing that we didn't cover today. I'd go out here and you can take a look at it, because most of the features that we're going to talk about are already posted out in this blog posting. I really want to point out one other thing since I'm already out here. We are doing a research project for GP Next. And it's really kind of back to this business intelligence, and I want better reporting. And we're trying to really drill down into what that means. And so we built a financial dashboard, and here's a screenshot of it that's in the blog post. There's a free download of it, so you can go out, you can download it here. It tells you how to hook it up to your Dynamics GP data, so you're able to actually hook it to your live data, refresh it, and then we want feedback from you. Is it have the right fields? Has the right data points on it? Is it really what you would use in the real world? I mean, because it looks pretty, but we want more than prettiness. We want it really to have, deep functionality that give you some of the answers that you're looking for. What are some of your trends that you use in your business? And so I encourage you guys download it. It's a free download. It'll work with Office 2013. If you don't have Office 2013 or you don't want to download the free preview of it, the only thing you'll miss is this gauge on the top right. So everything else you'll be able to view, but this gauge on the top right is a new feature in Office 2013. It's this glider, so you're able to just kind of highlight and pick the different quarters and so forth. And so that is the blog posting. And so with the features of the day, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and then you'll be able to see where is the blog. So here's the blog right here is blogs.msdn.com/GP. So that is the blog to get to the features of the day to get more information. Okay, so now let's talk about getting into kind of what's new in Dynamics GP 2013, and what we'll probably do, just because we are 20 minutes till the top of the hour, we're going to focus on financials and distribution. We will post more information out on Customer Source with the full feature list coming here probably in about a couple of weeks. So if you wanted more information on like project accounting and payroll and some of those other ones, you can look to future webcasts, or you're able to go to the features of the day and take a look at them. There were a few questions in the question manager that I did want to highlight while this comes up. Okay, so it looks like Okay, so the slide is not working quite right. So what I'll do is just talk through with you the features that we're adding in General Ledger, but when you print a PDF, I hope that they will show. If they do not, then I'll post the slide deck out onto the blog that I already gave to you, so you're able to get it there as well. So a few questions were about terminal services and Citrix. So if you do have a terminal services deployment or a Citrix deployment, if you deploy the web client, then you wouldn't need Citrix or terminal services anymore. So that would be a reason why you'd want to go to the web client, because you wouldn't have to have that infrastructure in place. And another question was about some of the reporting. So out of the box, we have with GP 2013, we'll have over 400 SQL reporting services reports that come out of the box. Some are charts and graphs. Others are actually reports like a trial balance report. We started SQL reporting services in version 10. So there's some in version 10. We've added more in 2010 and then more in 2013. We also have report books inside of the report builder in SQL reporting services. So if it doesn't have a sample that you can take and edit, you want something different, within a few clicks you're able to take a chart and graph, and it has user-friendly type naming. So when you're trying to create a report and do that, it's not difficult unless you get to the part where you'd have to move into more of a developer experience. From a deployment perspective with SQL reporting services, I mean, the deployment isn't very complicated. We have a deployment wizard. We basically say, where do you want the reports? You can deploy them to SharePoint. You could deploy them just to your reporting services server, and so you're able just to deploy them. So it's not really expensive to do. It just is more of taking the time to do it and picking the reports that you want, and then also securing. So securing the reports is probably the most complicated piece of it. What most people do is, and rather than securing individual reports, they secure like the folder structure, so they can't get into like if you deploy it to SharePoint, then the sales folder and things like that, they deploy it at that level and secure it there. It's a little bit simpler. There is a white paper out in Customer Source on security and deployment of SQL reporting services. So from a refresh perspective, you can have it pick to refresh real time, so every time someone opens a report, it'll refresh, or every minute or every 2 minutes or every 20 minutes, it'll automatically refresh. You can also set it to not refresh at all, where then they have to actually manually refresh it. So you have that choice per report of how you want them to be able to deploy. To some reports, like with financial type reports, usually it's the accounting and finance team who want to say, on this date, I want the numbers to be right, and then when I approve them, then I want that report to be refreshed, especially when they're like month-by-month type reporting. And so you have that control to be able to do that. Okay, so next, let's talk about some of the general ledger features. I know it's not showing on the slide, or at least it's not showing in my view. So I did want to just talk about a few of them. I think since the slide's not working, why don't we just go out into Dynamics GP and I'll show them to you instead. So a couple of the areas that we added, one is around being able to view historical journal entries in an inquiry format. So before, you could only go to inquiry and you wouldn't be able to view just a specific journal entry if it was in a historical year. So now what you're able to do is you're able to go in here, you can pick the journal entry, pick which year it's in, and then you'll be able to view that information. Next, with unit accounts is another highlight. So if you use unit accounts, one of the cumbersome things about unit accounts is during the year end. And so now what we have the option is per unit account, you can decide whether you want to clear the balance during the year end or if you want the unit accounts to stay with the current balance. So you're able to have a little more flexibility with some of the unit accounts. Year-end closing. We also did some things with the year-end closing. If any of you ran the year-end closing and you click to run it and then you think that it's done, or you don't know if you think it's hung because you're not sure if it's done or not, so you end task and you cancel out and you go back in, and really it was still running, you just didn't know it. What we've done is on this bottom here is a progress bar, so you'll know whether it's running or not. So it's something, again, something small, but to the person who actually clicks that year-end close year button, it's a huge thing for them to have that progress bar to be able to see where they're at. The other thing we added is around inactive accounts. So it's really common during year-end that you take a look at your accounts that you have set up and you discontinue some, or you have set up new accounts that you want to use for the next year. So what would happen is you don't want people using them. So you set up the account, but you mark them as inactive because you don't want people to use them until the next year. Where now what we've added the ability to do is be able to do that and then maintain any inactive accounts. So before it would clear out all those accounts if they didn't have, if they were inactive. Or now you can say I want it to maintain all inactive accounts or only ones that have a budget amount associated with it. Because, again, the reason why you create some of these accounts is because you want to do your budgeting to get ready for the next year, and you want to put it into those accounts. So it just makes it a lot more flexible when you think about some of the year-end processes that you'll go through. Okay, so I'll talk about it in a minute, but we did add a reconcile function, and I have some screenshots in the slide that I can show to you, but we did add the ability to reconcile from bank reconciliation to general ledger and inventory to general ledger. We already had a reconcile from accounts payable and accounts receivable to general ledger. They came in a previous release, so we've added 2 more, and it gives you a report. It does not actually, if you're not balanced, it gives you recommended suggestions, but it does not fix it because you want to look through it and decide how you want to handle that, and you also want to try to do some analysis to find out why it happened, so we don't actually make the fix, but we do give you, here's where you're probably unbalanced at, and you can take a look at it. So we've added 2 more reconciles as well. So payables. So let's take a look at some of the payables functionality that we've added. So we did add some areas around transaction and editing transaction information. So we added a new area to be able to modify specific information around invoices. So in this case, if you wanted to change the due date or you wanted to be able to change the PO number or description, you're able to do that now. So before, and this is after it's been posted, so you can't change everything, of course, but you're able to change some things. You're also able to change the remit to ID as long as it hasn't, a check hasn't been cut for it, then you're able to change that as well. So that's one of the new features that we added. We also added a lot of functionality around 1099 information. So we did add a 1096 form. So for any of you who print 1096s, now there's a 1096 form as well. But what we also did is we added the ability to update transaction information or just update vendor information around 1099s. So for example, let's say you set up a vendor, but you don't set them up as a 1099, and then later on you need to set them up again. So what you're able to do is you're able to go in here, you can update the 1099 vendor, you can say I just want to update the vendor or I want to update the transactions as well. And so what it will do is it will go back through all the history and it will recalculate your 1099 so your summary amounts always match your transaction detail. And so you're also able to change, let's say you wanted just to change the transactions for a 1099 and maybe it's a different box number that you would want that information to go to, you're able to do this and you're able to recalculate. So it's a huge, huge value with 1099 information. The other thing you're able to do is you're also able to take a vendor who was 1099 and change them to not be a 1099 vendor as well. So you're able to kind of do the reverse that you had before. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so next. So fixed assets. So we added a lot of functionality in fixed assets. So if you're currently using it, this might be a reason that you'd want to actually upgrade. So we added a lot of flexibility. The first, I'm going to highlight just a few of these. Again, there is printed PDFs, so you can print these out, and then you'll be able to look through them in more detail. The first thing we added was a historical depreciation report. So now you're able to get your depreciation on a specific day. So you're able to get your information, based on a specific day of your choosing. So no longer do you have to run it, on the last day of the year for financial purposes and save that information, because now you'll be able to do it in a historical year. You're also able to have independent fixed assets calendars. So your fixed assets could tie to the calendar year, they could tie to your fiscal year. Per asset, you're able to choose, which one that they would match to. You're also able to post in detail to General Ledger, and you can have transaction batches, so actual fixed assets transaction batches. So there's a ton of information in here. You guys can download this and look at on your own, but those are a few of the highlights of the top most requested features. A few other things that we added in the financials area. So we did add encumbrance management functionality. We added things with budgeting and encumbrance as well. We did add the BAI format as well. So now I talked about Reconcile. So we have a reconciler already with payables and receivables. We're adding bank reconciliation and inventory. This is what happens when you run the Reconcile is you get to this window here where you're able to see unmatched, potentially matched, and matched transactions. So this is where you can see if you're off, what happened, did it hit one place and not the other, and then you're able to kind of do some analysis to find out what happened and where things are at. And so this is just an example of the output of it. What we've added as well is the ability to have a folder structure, so you can save all of these. So let's say I ran a Reconcile, and I usually do it every month, or maybe I want to do it every week. I'm able to run it, save it out so other people can access it, and they know whether you've started the Reconcile. So you're able to save these files out into like a shared folder. On a side note, you could save it as a shared folder. You could save it to their local drive. They could also save it to Office 365 or to a SharePoint site. Okay, so I highlighted a few of the payables one. I assume you're seeing what I'm seeing, which it's not pulling up in the right way, but I'll just recover a few of the things. We did add some functionality around voiding checks. And so if you had a credit applied to a check and then you void the check, it didn't bring back the credit, and so now it'll bring back the credit for you. It'll also reverse the credit card invoice as well. So if you void a check and it was for a vendor credit card, then it'll move to there. In EFT, we added settlement date. So now you actually, in the EFT, you can have, the transactional date, but then you can also have the settlement date. So we added some more functionality around that. Another big feature, which is supposed to be listed right here, is we're now able to reprint checks and remittances. So now you can reprint check. It'll print exactly the way that it printed when you originally printed the check and the remittance form. So you're able to reprint those. So that was one of the top features as well. Okay, so receivables. So we added a few features in receivables. We did add the ability to rename the user-defined fields for the customer address. We added the ability to print your receivable statements using Word. And then we also added the ability to change your default sort order as well. So I'll show the default sort order in a minute. So let's talk about a few more features first, and then when we go do the demo, then I'll show that too. Okay, so for the sake of time, I know we're going through this fairly quickly, but I did want to highlight a few of the other features that we added in the distribution area. So with purchase orders, so we did add document attach. So we had OLE notes before, so if any of you are using them, they're still out there and still available, but what we've added is a simple document attach where you're able to attach multiple documents. It tracks when it was attached, who attached it, which user attached it, and so you're able to attach multiple things. You can attach virtually any document, and it includes all the master records as well as the transaction entry windows like the sales order and purchase order, where you can attach it to the header or you can also attach them to the line. What's nice about document attach is we store the document in SQL. So it is in a SQL blob, so you're able to get an Excel report, and you're able to report off that information. So kind of back to some of the reporting things, it's not going to be stored out in a separate area. It'll be within the SQL database, so you're able to report off of it. It is not full document management. We have several ISVs that do document management. This is kind of more of, if you didn't want the full document management, here's just this document attached that does more than what OLE notes would do. So it kind of bridges that gap between the two. So we did add some allow prepayments to a purchase order and tolerance handling. So I wanted just to quickly show you that information so you could see kind of where we're at and what it looks like. So let's start here. So the first thing I wanted to show you was just the default sort order. So when you do a lookup, one of the favorite features of a lot of power users is that ability to be able to change a view. And a lot of people do it off their smart list favorites. So you can be able to view, and then you can pick one of your smart list favorites. You can change your different sorts. Well, what we added is this set as default view. So now you get the inquiry window to look exactly the way you want to look at it. You set it as the default. Next time you go to the lookup, it's going to keep those changes. And it is per user, per company. So each person can have their own view of how they would want to do it, but you're able to set it as a default view. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show was about the tolerance and the tolerance setting and the prepayments on a purchase order. So if any of you have tons and tons of purchase orders just sitting out that only have a little tiny bit left that really should be closed, but they're open because they have a little bit remaining on them, this tolerance is going to give you the option to be able to close those. So if you have a lot of that stuff where there's just a little tiny bit left, what you're able to do is say, if there's a shortage by a certain percent, it can close out your purchase order. So it's going to give you a lot cleaner purchase order area if that's a scenario you have. You can also have overage. So now you can actually receive in more than the purchase order was from a certain tolerance. So it's kind of that scenario where, maybe it's pipe, and it's 12 inches of pipe, and they send you 12 and a half or 13 or 11 and a half. Now you're able to, be able to close those out. And you're able to do that tolerance, and you can set the tolerance for just purchase order, and then you also have another tolerance that you can do by item. So each item can have its own tolerance settings. The other area that we added was about prepayments, and this kind of goes back to 2009 in the economy. A lot of people are requiring prepayments when doing purchases, where before it didn't happen all that often, and where now it happens all the time. And so what we've done is we've allowed to add a prepayment on the purchase order. What's great about this is it actually ties into payables. So then in payables, then you can do a prepayment check batch, send out the checks. It won't affect cash until you actually do the check run. And actually do the check. So that's where this prepayment account comes in, because you're able to be able to do the accounting behind it without it affecting cash until you do the check run. And then you're also able to control it. So you can say only certain people can do the prepayment. You can put a prepayment password in there as well. So I know we're at the top of the hour. You can download these features as well. I know there's quite a few questions in the question manager. So Sydney, I'm going to turn it over to you so we can put the survey up because I really want to get feedback about the session today. And then I'll continue to answer questions that are in the question manager while we close out the audio portion.
Great. Excuse me. Great. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you should now be seeing a survey in your slide area. If you enjoyed today's webcast or you have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, please let us know by completing the survey. To complete the survey, click directly on your screen on one of the two hyperlinks, registered online or all other registrants. That will take you directly to the survey. And with that, Pam, I'll hand the floor back to you to wrap up with Q&A.
Okay, great. Thank you. So a few other questions that came in here. Where there'll still be local installs clients as well as web clients, and the answer is yes. So you can have a desktop client, you can have web clients, you can have a combination of both. So you kind of have that flexibility for them to work the way they would want to work. Are OLE notes accessible from the web client? I believe the answer to that is yes, but I will take a note to that, and so if that changes, I will do a posting on the Inside Dynamics GP blog. But yes, I believe that the web client will have OLE notes. So back to pricing. Existing customers who are current on their maintenance, they can ask. So you have to ask to get GP 2013. You won't automatically get it because we move you to this new price model. If you're module-based, standard or professional, or if you're on advanced management, you will automatically get the starter pack. You will automatically get the extended pack. So there's some transition rules that will happen as long as you're an existing customer prior to October 1st of this year. So you kind of get like for like. You're actually going to get a lot more functionality, and your list price remains the same. So if you had a $5,000 list price today, you choose to go to the new model, you'll have a $5,000 list price when you go there, and you'll probably have more functionality than you had before. So there are other webcasts or speak to your partner to find out your unique situation. The renewal works the same. So your renewal date stays the same. So you stay at the same exact renewal date because your list price stays the same. It won't restart, or you won't start from a year when you ask. It'll just stay where it is. Does GP 2013 work with F9, the F9 reporting tool? You'd have to ask F9 if they're going to be compatible with GP 2013 or not. Okay, so the concurrent and limited user. So if you can have, the way the users work is when you set up a user inside of GP, so I set up Pam, and I set myself up, I get to pick if I'm a full or limited user. And so it's kind of, you can pick which type of user that I am. And then when I log in, depending on which one you pick, that's the tracking. It's going to say how many limited or full users are in the system at any given time. But you'll be able to set an unlimited number of users up. It's just they can't all access at the same time. Another question was around the manufacturing module. The manufacturing module, we added, I think, 2 or 3 features in GP 2013 to the manufacturing module. It's not an area that we're focused on adding a lot of functionality. It works in a lot of manufacturing markets, especially with discrete manufacturing type companies. So that's kind of an area of focus. We don't plan on broadening it out to others. We also have several ISVs that do manufacturing and like process manufacturing and other areas that kind of expand the whole footprint. Is it true that the web client does not support any VBA customizations? Yes, that is true. The reason why is that web client is using Silverlight, and Silverlight doesn't know what VB VBA is, and so it doesn't understand that. And so it's something that we're looking at of, what is our go-forward steps for people who have highly customized VBA applications. So stay tuned because we're looking at, some different options that we'll be able to bring to you to kind of fill that gap. So at that point, what they would need to do is anyone that has VBA apps would have to use the desktop client when we ship. So with the reprint payables checks, it will reprint for checks after you upgrade to GP 2013. So it won't go back for historical. You have to get to 2013, and then any check runs after that will be able to view check or be able to reprint the checks. Okay, so there are quite a few other pricing type questions. So any customers, if you have pricing and licensing questions, you need to go talk to your partner. We've made some announcements around that and around the transition. So if you're a partner and you have questions about the pricing and licensing, there is a page out on Partner Source and webcast that you can view to get all of the detailed information. GP 2013 will still support Visual Studio. It'll still support VBA, modifier with VBA applications. It will just do that in the desktop client and the traditional client that you're used to using today. When is the official release date? The release date is actually going to be 12/19. So we will ship on 12/19. So, Sydney, I believe that's all the questions, and I think I've answered all the questions that they've asked. So I think we're ready to conclude the webcast for today.
Great, thanks. I'd like to remind everyone that you can print a PDF of the slides by clicking the printer icon in the lower right corner of your screen. A pop-up menu will appear, and once you click OK, the PDF document will open, allowing you to print or save the slides locally. And with that, I'd like to extend special thanks to Pam for today's presentation, and thank you all for joining us. You may now disconnect from the event.